Alrighty, so today we're going to be dissecting a sheep. Right now we're looking at it at a superior viewpoint. All brains have three protective membranes known as meninges. Today we're going to be looking at this milky white one, which is the outer layer known as the dermater.
Fun fact, there are two other meningeal membranes. The middle is called the arachnoid and the innermost is the pia mater.
Looking at the posterior side of the brain, we have the fatty tissue connected to the optic nerve. We're going to start by getting rid of that.
In the removing of the dura mater, the pituitary gland was removed. It controls the release of hormones. Okay, so here we are looking at the brain from a superior view still, and we're going to focus on the cerebrum right now. It's the largest part of the brain, and it controls conscious perception and thought. It also controls conscious motor activity. The cerebrum has two hemispheres, the right, which would be this side, and then the left. The right hemisphere controls the left side of the body, and it also controls recognition, visual imagery, and it helps with music. The left side of the brain controls the right side of your body, and it helps you with calculations and logical abilities. Your brain is split into the left and right hemispheres by the longitudinal fissure, and it goes all the way down the brain.
Alright, so as you look at the brain, you can kind of see a bunch of little folds throughout. Those are known as the gyrus. The folds increase the surface area, which allows for more room in the brain. The sulcus are the little crevices and grooves throughout the brain. So the brain is split up into 4 different areas or regions in the brain, also known as the lobes. So the first one, more anterior of the brain,
is the frontal lobe, and that controls muscle control, coordination, and conscious thought. Next we have the parietal lobes, which is helpful with perception, orientation, and taste.
The temporal lobes are located on the lateral side of the brain. They assist in auditory, speech, and memory analysis. Towards the brainstem, you have the occipital lobes, and those help with visual processing. The frontal and the parietal lobes are separated by the central sulci. It goes a different direction than all the other sulcis of the brain.
Posterior to the brain is the cerebellum, and that's the second largest part of the brain. That's the center for balance and equilibrium. Okay, so now we're looking at the brain from an inferior angle. First, we have the brain stem, and at the bottom of that, we have the spinal cord. Above that, we have the medulla, which is known for its respiratory, swallowing, and circulation control. Up from there, we have the pons, which is the control for motor controls and sensory analysis. Okay, so here we have the optic nerve on the posterior side of it. The other side was removed when we removed the membrane. The optic nerve traditionally makes an X and sends information. The right side of the X sends information to the left, and the left side sends information to the right, and that is helpful with vision.
Still looking at the brain from a posterior view, we go to the superficial portion of the frontal lobes, and we see the olfactory bulbs. They are attached to the olfactory nerves, and they aid in smell.
Okay, so we turned it back over, looking at a superior side angle again, and we're going to make a sagittal cut right down the middle. We're going to cut through the cerebral cortex, which is just a few millimeters deep into the brain.
Okay, so now we're looking at the brain after the mid-sagittal cut, and the whole brain has cerebrospinal fluid, which is between the membrane, and that is made up of white matter. So we're just going to go through and point out the brain stem again. Right here we have the spinal cord, we have the pons and the medulla. Okay, so next we're going to point out the diencephalon, which is the inner brain. It consists of two parts, the thalamus and the hypothalamus. The thalamus controls sensation, pain, emotions, and arousal, and it acts as a relay center for senses. The hypothalamus controls heart, blood pressure, body temperature. So if you look here, you have sort of like almost a wrench shape, and that's known as the corpus callosum, and that just holds the two hemispheres together.
Now we are looking at the pineal gland. It is also known as the third eye. It secretes melatonin and it helps with your sleep cycle. Looking at the cerebellum from a closer point of view, we see this tree-like structure known as the arbor vitae. It's Latin for the tree of life, and the function of this is to transmit coordination and balance throughout the body.
Okay, so now we're going to point out the ventricles. First, we have the lateral ventricle, which collects fluids. Then it drains in the third ventricle, which is rather long compared to the first one. Then it slips into the cerebellum with the fourth ventricle.
Now that we've blown your mind, have a brain-tastic day.